Hello, Get Better Faster Nation. I am Dr. Jason Bradley, and along with my co-host, the one, the only James Chester, and our incredible executive producer, Dr. Rachel Bradley, we want to welcome you to another powerful episode of the Get Better Faster podcast. Today, we are joined by someone who has lived the truth that your body must keep up with your ambition. McKensie Stanton is a certified nutrition coach, personal trainer, exercise physiologist with over 14 years of experience helping people reclaim vibrant health. She's a former college athlete with a degree in health sciences, and she brings both the science and the story. She overcame eating disorders at 3 pivotal moments in her life, and instead of hiding that journey, she turned it into a mission. Today, she leads the World Changers Movement, a global initiative empowering purpose-driven leaders to thrive with strength and resilience. Her message is bold. Thriving health is not optional for World Changers. It is the foundation that makes everything else possible. McKensie, my good friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been incredibly excited to be with you guys today. So thank you. I'm excited to chat.
I'm excited too.
Yeah, and it's been a long time coming. I know that we had a chance to all connect in Boise. Wow, it's been over a year ago now. So I know you guys have had some time together at one of your World Changer events. And you brought Jason and Rachel, I think, over to Fiji, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. We got after it.
It was a blast too, by the way. I mean, it was life-changing, and it was also fun. You know, sometimes those things don't necessarily go hand in hand. This actually did that.
Yeah, we had great people. So that's what made it.
It was great people.
And I think one of the missing links in this world is community and what we all bring. And so, Jace, I think during the introduction, you did mention that she's a college athlete and a health science degree, yeah?
That's right.
Yep. And that would mean on paper, it looks like you had all the tools. And I think that that's just a clarity moment for me to kind of go into the first question is, knowing that, what would you say is the gap between experiencing real health and understanding the relationship with your own body? Because I know he said that in 3 pivotal moments in your life, you had maybe not the best relationship with food. And where would you say that there is a gap between knowing the science and actually experiencing a healthy relationship with your own body?
Yeah, that's so good. Such a great question. I would say from a high level, there's an outside-in approach and there's an inside-out approach. And I think that both are relevant and important. Just starting with the inside out is what's going to last. And I did not start that way. Part of why I pursued my education in health and wanting to understand it was just simply because it felt so elusive to me growing up. I just didn't understand why I struggled with it. And so formally studying it and like diving into all the science and background, it just, first off, it did help because I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand how the body works, and I'm passionate about it. I could read about it all day. I could talk about it all day. You know, it's so invigorating. But for the longest time, I felt such a disconnect of, okay, now that I know more, why am I not able to do what I want to do? Why can't I follow through in my behavior? And what I found through those painstaking times was a lot of purpose. I do believe in purpose in the pain, but was the fact that I was taking that outside-in approach, that I'd never gone, and up until I did, look at my own identity and what shaped that. Where did I root my identity? And I rooted that outside of myself. I'd rooted it into like from the opinion of other people and just the narrative that so many of us receive when growing up. And in my childhood, MySpace kind of became a thing when I was in like junior high, and then Facebook and social media kind of started popping off a little bit more. But even before then, I just knew I didn't look like the other girls. I'm broad shoulders, I have big calves, and just built differently. And then coming into now seeing more images and what's liked and what's praised, at least at the time, was not what I looked like. And so it was really a battle for me. And it's so counterintuitive to then lean on food to try and comfort myself for part of the problem of what food creates. Doesn't make sense, So, but then, fortunately, I was dedicated to growth. And so eventually I was like, well, if all this outside stuff isn't going to work, let's change the process. Let's change how I'm pursuing this. And I hit rock bottom. And it was really the times I faced eating disorders in my life, and the times I overcame them. I think of it now like a puzzle, where when I overcame it the first time I was a kid, and I found more pieces of the puzzle. And then as a young adult, when it entered my life again, more extreme, I started to see, okay, there's more pieces of this puzzle. I see a bigger picture on overcoming it, right? That I started to understand that it was a mental, physical, spiritual, relational healing process. And then the last time, a few years ago, when I faced it again, I didn't have the spiritual piece until then. And so that really helped me see, okay, now I have the full picture. So yeah, there's a lot more to that, but that's what I would say for now.
Well, I'm going to go in a little bit. Thanks for sharing that. And I think that that's a lot for people to start to understand as we open up today's interview with you. But I want to go back into the clarity moment of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that the decisions that we make when it comes to the fuel sources that we choose have a direct influence on our attitude, our behaviors, our motivations, and what I wrote down here is mind, body, soul approach to life. And if we're not getting good fuel,
Mm-hmm.
that directly has an influence on our energy level for our soul, our
Mm-hmm.
energy level for our body, and our energy level for our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again, it goes full circle back to identity.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go through these cycles of life, whether it's a young girl, it's a teenage girl, it's a middle-aged girl, like we have to go and understand how the identity affects the fuel sources that we choose for the mind, body, and soul, and how that equals into energy and how that full circles back into identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a real clarity moment for you to share that, because I'm sure you're not alone with thinking about these things and the pressures that society puts on us to think that we have to look a certain way to be accepted. And then what happens to that? That changes the way that we think about the fuel source that's healthy for us. And we move away from the fuel source that's best for us. And we start supplementing with the wrong things that aren't healthy for us. And what people don't understand is this has a direct impact on our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when our energy is not balanced out, we don't have good thoughts. We don't have good reflection. Our self-esteem is low.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to reestablish that a baseline again and prove it back to ourselves that we're healthy again, we're valuable enough, and we can make the change.
Mm.
So like I was talking to you off camera, if we just did square 1 and 2 the right way, we don't have to go and fix square 3, 4, and 5 to like go back to where we should have been at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So we do all this extra work to reestablish identity again.
So well said. So well said. Spot on.
And I think that just kind of building that construct for people as we go through today's conversation with you is really healthy for people to understand that, we're more alike than we're different. And the things that you're dealing with, we deal with the things that our listeners are dealing with. We understand at your level and their level. And that's really why we do this, is to bring people on to help people understand the different approaches to living a life that honestly they can learn how to get better faster. And I think it's full circle. And the gift that you bring today is sharing your identity with more people to know that we're more alike than we're different. And the things I think you're going to share with Dr. Jason and I today are going to have a huge ripple effect on the identity. Specifically, if I could just be frank, young girls. And being a voice for like them to not follow that same pathway and to say, hey, McKensie figured it out. And now I have somebody I can look up to that can tell me the truth. And I don't have to like fall into the same traps that she did.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in there too. And I want to, talk about the movement and how this all translated into this awesome movement that Rachel and I, Dr. Rachel and I have been a part of and had a great experience. But I want to just say, to what James said, I'm a girl dad of 2 strong young women. And I mean, they're smart, they're strong, they're independent, they're hard workers. I could go on and on about the litany of how awesome these kids are. They're also kind, caring, empathetic people. I mean, they're just amazing kids. That said, I still see the pressure of especially on women. I think it affects, men and boys as well. There's some pressure there, but there is a pressure on women, and young girls, and it seems to be younger and younger, to look a certain way, act a certain way, dress a certain way. And it's a lot. And like I said, even as a girl that is these two strong, independent young women, I still see them talking and hear them talking about, and they talk with me about it and Rachel about it, about these influences. And that's what's expected. And that's what, this and that and the other thing. And it's hard for me because I just want to, be a papa bear and put myself as a shield between them and the outside world. And it's so darn hard. And I just want to just give credence to, what James, mentioned there. The other thing that I don't know if I've shared with you, McKensie, and I'd love to hear you chat about, what's, this outside world influence and this pressure and being a young girl and growing up in that environment, because I'm not a young girl and I didn't grow up in that environment. So I don't know what that's like other than just this, secondhand experience through my daughters and what Rachel shared. But, in 2012, I wrote a chapter in a textbook. It's the only textbook that's actually the second textbook I've been involved with, but I wrote a chapter of a textbook called Global Viewpoints, Eating Disorders. And I specifically wrote it on, my chapter was affectionately titled by Barbie or Burqa. And it was about women from the Middle East, very timely today, as a matter of fact, women from the Middle East who had translocated to the United States and then developed eating disorders. I found the research very interesting. And for a hot minute, I was the world expert in that very, very small niche. Now I think there's a couple of other folks that have done more extensive research than me. Mine was more just chatting with folks and putting together a meta-analysis of what was going on out there. But I learned a lot through that experience. And just the way culturally, and you're a world traveler, but just the way culturally things are different, at least in this case, in the Middle East, and then translocating, and then the pressure in the West and the pressure in America. I'd love to hear your commentary on, because I don't know, what do you think about the pressure in not necessarily the Middle East, but, outside of the United States? Is it different? Are women expected and young girls expected to, I don't know, is there a different social pressure? I don't know how to get out of that sentence, but is there different social pressure in different countries?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm really glad we're talking about this, because when I was really in the throes of it and it was just so extreme. It was what I thought about. It's what I was battling. I woke up thinking about it, went to bed thinking about it. Healing for me to hear other women or anyone talk about it and to share that they also battled. So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Like, I think so much in the human experience is that we think we're alone. And I heard this quote a long time ago, and it just stuck with me, that what is the most personal and private is the most sacred and universal. So we think we're alone, but we're really not. And, I have a two-angled answer to the question of women outside the US. And then I will share a little bit of, what I do now with World Changers and Elite Edge and kind of the difference and the overlap between the two, just to create clarity there. But a quick story. So when I was in, this was over a decade ago. I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head, but I was in Morocco and I was there for a couple of months. And this was right after I graduated college, and I was volunteering there and staying with some locals and some other travelers. And long story short, I met this Moroccan woman, beautiful. She had the hijab on and she was just beautiful, great energy. But I could tell, I saw in her what I had also battled, was she just didn't find beauty in herself. And I had trained some friends of mine and, technically clients in college when I was playing softball. And I'd had a coach myself as well for strength and conditioning. And so I'd had some experience in helping people. So I was like, hey, I'll design a workout program for you and, help you understand it, help, show you some movement patterns and everything to stay safe and effective. And it was the first time in my life at that point that I was like, oh my gosh, here's this beautiful woman in another part of the world that has some level of dissatisfaction with her body. Like, from what I recall, her intention in movement wasn't for health purposes, at least what I saw. I'm not saying it wasn't there. But the primary driver was that she wanted to look different. That how she was, as she was, wasn't acceptable. And so I do believe, now I'm not here to say that that's the Moroccan culture or anything, but I do believe that, it is more common. Now, this is the thing about the US. Even if someone's, say, from another country, the US media has infiltrated everywhere. Like when I travel, and I don't go to resorts a ton. I like Airbnbs. I like going where locals go. But if I'm in an Uber, if I'm like at a restaurant, I hear American music all the time. And a lot of people I talk to that speak in English, and it's like, oh, well, tell me about like what it looked like. Did you study in school, or how'd you learn your English? Like, American movies. So they would listen to the movies and shows that we know, and that's helped them with their English. And so I do believe that if they were void of, say, our influence, it could be different in certain cultures, but so much of the world is infiltrated with our example. And even now I have a program that I have a couple young gals in gal in Indonesia and a gal in the Philippines. And we talk about health, and both of them in our intimate community, safe space, have expressed just wanting to feel beautiful. And that's what I would say is, I think as women, I believe that we have a innate need to feel beautiful, to be beautiful. And that is our outside from what the world sees. So, and I still have that. I want to feel that way. I mean, shoot, a lot of women as they age, I mean, why is Botox a thing? It's like, I want to hold on to this essence of what we deem as beauty.
Interesting.
So, and then I'll just touch on briefly, if I may. So Elite Edge is my transformational health and human performance company. We do one-on-one and group coaching. And I say transformational health because we start with that inside out approach where, yes, I design programs. Yes, we talk nutrition. Yes, we do the typical trainer type stuff. But we don't do it despite the inside. Like we go deep. We talk about identity. We map out values. We go into, okay, what's the performance? How do you want to live? What do you want to be able to do? I just did this with a group this week. When you're 90 years old, what kind of activity do you want to be able to do? Right. So if you're 40 now, like, let's measure that, because there's a natural decline in muscle mass and bone density if we don't do anything. So if you're proactive, we can get ahead of that. And based off of the science and numbers, you can have more confidence that the probability of you being able to do these things at that age go up. So anyways, that's what Elite Edge is. And then World Changers pulls in some components of Elite Edge, but we expand beyond health to our mind, how we think, rewiring our mindset, obviously the health component, and then leadership. Like, for example, Dr. J and Rach were in our program, and they're same with James. I say this about you as well, amazing entrepreneurs. So you guys, serve a ton of people, you do big things, you have a lot of responsibility, you have massive vision, you work extremely hard. Like, you have so much going on. You're world changers. And so on that side of things, it was like, how can we now integrate our health to show up in these other areas of our life more? So it's a community, and we have different programs for that. Obviously retreats as well. So anyways, that's all that. Yeah.
Can I jump in? I guess my big question is, who are your programs for? Who's your ideal avatar? Who are your clients that you're looking to attract into both of these movements?
Yeah. Great question. More so from the World Changers perspective, it's the achiever. it's the person that is they've done the thing. I actually literally earlier today gave a talk at our local chamber here in Idaho, where I'm from. I'm visiting for a little bit. And I talked about, it's the people that have built a life that looks right.
That's cool.
And what World Changers is about is those people they're going to take time out of their day to personally develop. They're going to fly across the country because they want to go to a conference to get a little bit better and get around other people. Like, it's those type of people, typically entrepreneurial, but they could also be leaders in a corporate space. But what we do is focus on, okay, where's the disconnect? And let's have a halftime talk in one of our programs to now let's build a life and shift the gears and make the necessary changes so it's a life that feels right.
And do you think that the transition of being recognized to being invited into a community helps the transition with these people that look like they're perfect on the outside or they have it all figured out on the outside. Do you feel like it helps the transparency of that individual coming into a community state and being a part of other people that are world changers, find other parts of their lives that they didn't really pay attention to or they were deficient in, and start cleaning up some of the dark corners of their life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr.
Can I
J?
comment on that actually?
Yeah.
About my experience?
Mhm.
So, Rachel and I were, very blessed to be able to participate in the inaugural, I think, World
Mhm.
Changers movement that started in Fiji last early fall or late summer of
Mhm.
2025. And the 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 ramping on, it's not just like, oh, you're going to go on a retreat and meet some people. Like, it's a long on ramp. It's
Mhm.
there's a lot involved. There's interviews. There's, I swear, psychoanalysis. There's, I mean, I don't know. They're digging into like all sorts of aspects, or they as
Mhm.
McKensie, digging into all sorts of aspects of, your health, your life, your rhythm of life, and somewhere in there, myself, as I won't speak for Rachel, but myself as, quote, a health expert, I've been in the trenches helping people reclaim their health, happiness, and vitality, for the last 26 years.
Mm.
And I'm the guy that knows everything about everything and can help anybody with anything, although we specialize, in thyroid and autoimmunity, and particularly women. But I know a whole lot. Like, it's not for a lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
Somewhere in this process, this on-ramping, this onboarding process, it became very evident to me where my gaps were, James. McKenzie knows, because she interviewed me and we shared it and we figured out what I needed to be doing. And my gaps, despite all of my effort, wasn't just movement. It wasn't for lack of movement. We have dogs. We are on mini walks, during the day. We're outside quite a bit and this and that. But really, my biggest gap in, what's something that I could do to move the lever with my health right now and lay down a foundation of health that's even more improved right now, but for decades and decades to come, that's going to keep me from being feeble and weak when I get older. And it was strength training for me. My diet was pretty on point. My sleep, I'm in a good rhythm. My hydration was really good, or is really good. My mental health and my nervous system regulation. I had all these great things that were going for me, but my strength training was in the toilet. It was pretty much non-existent. And so we set goals, right? And I think that the goals with the accountability, and that's where the community comes in. Like I said, the onboarding isn't just, us with McKenzie, it was us with the other people and the other, and we got to know each other before we ever went away to Fiji to have our experience together and create the movement together. But my goals, I'm going to share this. I'm hedging here because I'm embarrassed about what my goals were, but I was so weak that my goal was, I hope by the end of this movement, I can do 20 push-ups. Like, literally, it was a really, to me, cause I want to be like, I can do 1,000 push-ups. I'm Chuck Norris. In fact, I have a sign right there in the studio that says, how many push-ups can Chuck Norris do? And then it says all of them, and that was my motivation. Right. And the point that I'm making is that, there was accountability with that. We had to log things, we had to share things, very transparently, with the whole group, and everybody had their own unique gap that they were working on. But by the end of that, by the end of the onboarding, by the end of the movement, I was not only doing 20 push-ups, but I was doing more than 20 push-ups. I think I don't know. I don't know how many I got to, but I actually started doing them twice a day. So it wasn't just that I was doing 20 push-ups one time and I could do it and hallelujah. I was like, I'm cranking out 40 push-ups twice a day. And I don't know where I am today. In fact, McKenzie, I was thinking about you the other day. I got to start those 2-a-days again. And the accountability is important, but what I'm sharing is like, this gap is so interesting because even though I have all the knowledge and I've spent 2.5 decades putting this together and I help other people, I needed accountability, and I think it's interesting that McKenzie said World Changes is for people that have built a life that looks right, but want a life that feels right. And I'm going to admit this, I was out of alignment with my strength training. I was out of alignment with it. I did not have the integrity around it that I needed. So through that process, not only did I get stronger, which is awesome, thank you. And my physique is so much better now too. So Rachel, thank you. All the ladies at the beach, thank you for that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, but I mean, it feels right, and I feel in alignment, and I feel I have integrity. So, and then of course, James, as you know, that integrity that you place in one spot flows into other things. So it's as you do one thing, it's how you do all things. So anyway, kind of a long-winded, remembrance of things, but really that's the way there's so much more to World Changers and Elite Edge. But I mean, just in a microcosm of that gap, I mean, that's how I experienced that. And it was literally life-changing. It was life-changing and life-improving.
Well, I want to talk from the perspective of a man, because we've been sharing like the insights of like the perspective of women with, having McKensie as our featured guest today. But as a man, when we're stronger, everything else is easier. I'll just tell you that. That's my own interpretation of what Jason said there. When we're stronger, everything else gets easier. And I could say it 10 times again, but I really believe that we can handle stress better. We can handle financial flow better. We can handle outside in perspective on us a lot better when we look good. We feel stronger. We perform better. And I think that could be said for anybody. But I really believe that when you look, I think Deion Sanders said, when you look good, you play good. When you play good, you get paid good. And I think that goes into the psychology of anybody that's a high achiever. When you look good, you play good. And when you play good, you get paid good. And I really believe that that's like a linear perspective for so many people. But back to the man statement, when we are stronger, everything gets easier.
Wow.
I agree. I agree with you as a band. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, and thank you both. Like, couple things. Dr. J, thank you for sharing all of that, because I'm so proud of you guys.
You
and Rachel, like, you totally transformed, and it was so cool to see. And especially someone like yourself that is so accomplished. Like, I think that's just to say that there's a lot to health. You listed off multiple of the areas that are dialed, but yet it's a balancing, it's a juggling act, right? It's like, okay, I get better over here, and then I've got to work on my mobility, and then I got to, right? So that is life. And I think having accountability helps bring it full circle to say, okay, I might have let that slip because maybe I don't enjoy it as much, or maybe it just feels like it's too much time, or whatever the reason might be in my brain. But now it's going to bring it to the forefront. I love what you said too, James, on when you're stronger, everything's easier. Little story. So one of my best friends, she is my soul sister, actually. Her name's Taj Wilding, and her and I were training for a high rocks race. This is a little over a year ago, and she's also a personal trainer. That's how we met. And, but we'd never done this race before. So we were like, hey, we want to know what the best way to train for this race is from someone that's done really well. So we hired a coach for a few months and got to know his programming and how it's a high output race, and a lot of running, a lot of heavy lifting. And so, but something that he would say is like, I want my workout to be the hardest thing I do all day. So if I can push myself in my workout, and not to like this unreasonable place to injure myself, but if I can mentally put myself in a place where I'm uncomfortable enough, I don't want to do more sets, but I'm going to do them. I don't know if I can do another rep. I'm going to try it, safely. But that's always stuck with me, because I think when it comes to the physical component, and then again, that's why it's integrated into World Changers, is our belief in ourselves to go out there and make a change in the world is so much bigger when we have that energy and that strength, right? So I love that. And gosh, so many thoughts. These guys are great. One other thing that I think I'll throw out there that's aligned with the inside out approach, what we've been talking about in the safe space for high achievers. I spent a decade in 12-step programs. So my first one was OA, Overeaters Anonymous, at 19 years old. And I was in college. I saw it on a billboard, or not a billboard, a board in one of the hallways of the school. I don't know how it ended up there, but it did. And I took my roommate at the time. And I remember sitting in that room being like, I've never felt so understood. And I was weeping. And God bless my roommate at the time. She's still one of my really close friends. She was sitting there eating snap peas. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, and like she didn't have that battle. right? But she's so supportive. She's an amazing person. But it clicked with me of like, wow, I need to be in spaces that I can come and be real and be seen.
Mm.
And that's what I want to create here. So go ahead,
Well,
James.
I think a lot of it has to do with the deep-rooted self-judgment.
Yeah. Oh.
And then what that does is that kicks up an attitude of resentment, and it kicks up an attitude of anger. And a lot of times when people don't know how to manage these things, they look to something to sedate them. And I think sometimes people go towards the food source like you did. But you said 12-step program. There's many of them, as you probably know, but there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with more than eating problems and eating disorders. They're dealing with how do they manage their sedation from all the things that happen when we come to this crisis moment of identity. Back to what I originally said when we opened up the call today, if I can find my notes. Let me scramble quickly and find them. I shuffle papers around like it's my job. Identity, mind, body, soul equals energy. Energy equals identity. And I think it's a full circle is when we have a clear modifier of our mind, body, and soul, it equals energy. And when the energy is good, it can give us good identity. When the energy is bad, it gives us a poor identity. And sometimes it takes a lifetime to, fix that stuff. But I do believe that what you're saying is that version of yourself at 19, it's an iteration of a timeline of life. And we have to always, we can't forget where we come from. Like we can like become an amazing person and a new version of ourselves, but we don't ever get to like erase parts of the paper. It's always a part of our story. Like there's no edit and delete button. Like it is who we are. It's our character. It's in our embodiment. Like it is everything that we've become. So I think it's important for people to know that, like, look, if your workout's the hardest thing that you do in that day, hey, at least you did something that challenged you. And I hope that everything else gets easier on you because you got stronger. And I think that that's a really important part of today's episode, is to know that if you do the hard things, then other things get easier on you. And that continuously goes back into this energy flow. And I know Dr. J has his hand up, so I'm going to pass it over.
I'm chomping at the bits here because I want to say this. We sometimes say this at the end of episodes. If you're listening to this at the beginning of all of our episodes, grab a pen and paper and keep notes, because there is like gold being dropped right now. What's being said on this podcast right now could change, if you'll let it, could change your life forever, change someone that you love's life literally forever. Go, and if you need to go back and listen to it, do it like 10 times, because there's so much gold. We're only 30 minutes into the show, and there's like so much already. But anyway, I did want to go back to what McKensie said earlier. McKensie, you mentioned that, how did you say it? I'm going to try to paraphrase here. Hold on. Oh, shoot. Oh, what's the most personal and private is the most sacred and universal, right? And I think that, especially with that, I can't speak for everybody, but I know in the past, and certainly still now, a lot worse in the past, I've done a lot of headspace work, but I have what I call the false narrative, or the background noise in my head of the negative banter, the negative talk about myself, not good enough, not whatever it is, not lovable, not good enough, not worthy. I mean, all the big things, right? And I think that when it comes to something like an eating disorder, there's a couple of things I want to comment on. First of all, people aren't alone, right? And I think that's really important, because I think people think that they're struggling and suffering, and it's like it's a really small amount of people, and you don't want to be different, but it's estimated conservatively, and I want to share this with everybody and own this. If you're struggling with food, own this. At a minimum, all the neuroscientists and psychologists and everybody in metabolism agrees with this. At a minimum, 20% of adults have some type of food issue, food addiction, or food issue. That's 1 in 5. So think about, even if you're not struggling with it, just think of 5 people in your head. someone's struggling with this. I mean, at a minimum. Now, if we explode that, that's probably conservative, because if we go to America and we look at the stats from the CDC, if they can be trusted. I'm teasing. That was a political joke. Listen, from the CDC directly, they say that around, I'm rounding here, 75%, I think it's 74.6 or 74.8, but anyway, 75% of Americans, just Americans, are overweight or obese. Out of that 75, so 75, 40% of Americans, so more than the other, 40% of Americans are obese. And I mean, if we think about that, people don't become obese just by eating a little too much, right? I mean, this is a choice every day that leads people to eat more, eat the wrong foods. And then we jump into the food industry, which I will not go on my diatribe, I promise. But I mean, they hire people called food scientists, which sounds really cool, right? But listen, if you've ever, I actually had to lecture at Janencor in front of 300 food scientists, and they're an interesting group of people. I'm just going to say this. But anyway, food scientists' job, their primary job is to, with the Frankenfoods and ultra processed foods and things that are box can wrap packaged and sold to us, is to create something called, or to really stimulate something called a bliss point. What's a bliss point? It's when we feel good eating their food. It stimulates our receptors on our tongue, on our nervous system, in our hormones, beyond dopamine, all this. I mean, it literally is stimulating our entire being to want to eat more of their food. I mean, take something just as simple as, I'll just throw this out there, something as simple as sucralose, Splenda, right? So sucralose, an artificial sweetener, people are like, oh, I drink the artificial sweetener and I'm not getting sugar, right? Except here's the weird thing that it does. It hits that bliss point so high that it actually tells your brain that it wants more sweets. It actually tells your brain, I got to consume more carbohydrates. I got to consume, more sweets. It tells your brain, or it tells your body that it needs to, it basically makes your body less sensitive to insulin. So now you're craving sugars, you're craving, sweets, you're craving carbohydrates, and your body is unable to process them as well. So now we don't get the flood of those sweets into our cells, and our cells, what do they want? They want more fuel. What's quick fuel? More carbohydrates. And this is why we see the weird things happening with, like, and I'll go there full circle. And James, I see you nod in your head. We see these weird things happening where people go to I won't pick on it, but the fast food chain of your choice, where it's like, supersize me, but I'll take a Diet Coke with it, right? I mean, and it's just really interesting, the psychology behind that. And I wanted to go back, and then James, I'm passing on to you, that you also said, oh boy, where did the media, you said the media is infiltrated everywhere with this pressure. And it's interesting because in that media, the other thing that's infiltrated is American fast food and the standard American diet. So, I mean, again, we are taking our unhealthy bliss point triggering Frankenfoods and ultra processed foods and putting them all around the world. And it's creating not just body dysmorphia, not just a poor love of myself, however I am, and I see myself differently, but it's literally creating health issues. It's creating diabetes. We're seeing a profound increase in obesity, diabetes and other metabolic disorders. So, I mean, this is really real, and it's just a lot. There's a lot there. And anyway, I just wanted to throw in on this conversation with that. James, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad you passed it back to me, because these are some hit home moments for McKensie to talk on. And I'm going to ask her a question based on your analysis there. So what Dr. Jason said is mainstream American culture has overstepped the line. It's cool that other cultures can learn English from movies and music. When I was in college, I went to school over in the Netherlands, and I would travel around Europe. And one of the things I would always ask, like, the people that spoke good English, like what you do, is I was like, how'd you learn English? They're like, we watch Friends.
Shout out to Friends. Change the world.
But that was popular back 20 years ago when I was in college. And That was a lot of the way that the world was learning humor, but they were also learning character set. They were also learning the American idea of what we think is good and funny. So once again, did we overstep our line for a long time? I don't know, but it seems like we have learned how to blur the lines of culture, and we turn up all over the place because of our media creation. But now it goes deeper. We're talking about the food and how it impacts people. And I think that that's something to talk about, which we are, but also it creates the behavior patterns and how that affects people. And now we're talking about the downstream effect of health related issues because of the media and because of the blurred lines and the influence. So there is a question packed in this. The quality of food has gone down, yet the price of food has gone up. Calories are cheaper than ever, but everything is made in a lab. How do you manage this with your clients?
Yeah.
And how do you get them back to a baseline analysis of not hitting these bliss points, but eating for energy and fuel? So back to the identity, this gives them a better identity rather than a poor identity.
Yeah.
What are your strategies for that?
Yeah, such a great question. Oh my gosh, I could talk on this all day. You guys have added such great value. Number one, I love that this podcast exists. So thank you for all of your hard work and effort that you put into this, because messages like this need to be heard by more people. And I think a podcast is an incredible conduit for that, let alone all the other platforms that this can reach. But a couple quick things, and I'll share some ideas, like some practical approaches. Excuse me. So you mentioned sucralose, Dr. J, and man, I cannot tell you how many times I have my clients send me pictures of ingredients. I haven't been in the States. Well, the last 6 months I haven't used these apps, so I don't want to vouch for them exactly, but there's one called Yuka, some call it Yucca. Those I think are simple tools that people can help. Oh, like, let me just simply scan and see what ingredients are here. I haven't researched this recently, what their database looks like. So I'm not like vouching for this to be the holy, grail or anything, but just it's a start. It's a simple start of an example. But outside of that, I do have clients send me pictures, and I can't tell you how many times they've been like, hey, this is good, right? And it has this ingredient and that ingredient and that ingredient, but then it has freaking sucralose in it. And I'm like, if it didn't have that one thing on some of the stuff, everything else looks pretty solid, all things considered. But it's like, even just one ingredient can have, like you so eloquently put, Dr. J, that kind of effect. And especially if we're having that every day, it's like, we don't even know what's happening. Another quick story, a former client of mine, I worked with her for probably, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. I ended up leaving the company I was working with. And so that I was contracted with. And that's why we kind of stopped coaching together. But great gal, like hard worker, showed up on her check-ins. Like she wanted it. Like when you train a lot of people, you can see the people that are like serious. They're putting in the effort. Like they realize, hey, I'm going to hire a coach, but the coach isn't going to do the work for me. They're not going to come to me and put the food in my mouth. Like I still have autonomy over that choice. She was that type of client. Yet she worked in the food industry. She was a food scientist. And it was so fascinating to me because I remember on a couple of occasions, and this is her identity, mind you, I am a food scientist. She was like, I trust the food industry. I trust it. And yet here I am for a year and a half, at least, working with her on breaking the addictive tendency towards overeating foods. So it was a delicate dance that I took in building trust and asking questions and not going against her identity from the front. Because depending on the person, that can really be like, wait a second, I had to kind of delicately walk that line, but we eventually started to get to the place of, wait a second, this is kind of an identity shift here of, why do I believe this? Why do I trust this? What have I been told about it? But it was just so fascinating in this example of seeing both sides of it with one person. Do you have something to say, James?
I just wanted to say, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because you have an educated mind doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah.
And we have to lean on people that see it from a different angle than us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be willing to say, okay, I have a job. but I need to reinvestigate what the purpose behind it is. And I'm going to tell a personal story. When I first got out of college, almost 20 some years ago, thank you. I got a degree in marketing and I got a degree in journalism, and I started working for a newspaper. But I realized that they weren't producing great content. And it was the most widely distributed newspaper in my hometown. And it was like one of those like things that you do and you work a lifetime for to get one of those good jobs. I got one of those good jobs. But what I realized is that what we were producing, I wasn't proud of. So I took the longest lunch break in history and I never went back. But I think it's important for people to understand this. Just because you think that you have it figured out and you got that good job, you might need to investigate if it's the right thing for you to do and you feel proud of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it is important to find people like yourself that you can lean on that can give us the analysis for choice. And I think that that's what you did for her, is you gave her an analysis for choice.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. But also I feel like I had to bring it home a little bit to tell people, like, just because you think you figured it out doesn't mean that you can't invite somebody else to give you a new perspective.
Yeah.
Because it might change your life. It actually might save your life. And like Dr. Jason was saying, people should take out their pen and paper and read and listen to this episode 10 to a dozen times and know that the things that we're talking about today, they hit every household. You know, not just the girl dads, not just the eating disorder people, but the people that are incongruent with what they want out of their life and their future. So I think it's really important that people do investigate where they want to be at 70 years old and timeline themselves back and know that the new middle age is 35. So it's not some midlife crisis at 50. So enjoy life as you go and be congruent with the things that are inside your heart. And I think that that's a huge takeaway. So Dr. Jason, over to you.
No, I think that the numbers that you just shared there are important, because I think that people do think about midlife crises, you know, happening in the late 40s or 50s, you know, and the reality is I disagree with this next statement, but it's just the stats. People statistically don't live much beyond the mid 70s, right? So let's just average it all out and say 75 years old. Give or take a little bit if you're a man or a woman, or if you're living in this country or that country. We have a couple places in the world where it's 82, but not really. It's mostly in the mid 70s when you average it all out. And if you, what is midlife is 37 and a half years old. It's at your 6-month birthday after, you know, 37th, right? And I mean, that's young. I mean, I've got, you know, a decade and a half on that number, and I still feel like I'm not even in my midlife stride yet. You know, I feel like I'm still creating and doing and doing it. But the reality is I wish, even knowing and James, you said it right, you know, just knowing things is not enough, you know, and it's just not. I knew a lot. I've known a lot for a really long time, but I wish I would have made some different choices in my college years. You know, speaking of addiction, I mean, I think that it's, you know, we're talking about some food addiction on this show, but I mean, hey, I have said it to everybody on this. I've said it on the episodes before, and I'll say it again. I was an alcoholic. I drank more alcohol than most people consume in a lifetime on a weekend. I'm teasing, but I mean, not really. I went to, you know, one of the top 5 party schools, you know, in college. I started way before college, by the way.
But they create great writers.
They do create great writers. You know, anyway, but you know, the reality is, I mean, I think people have a certain amount of understanding of, oh, you're abusing alcohol, or, oh, you're abusing, like, I also abused weed like crazy. In fact, I don't know if I shared this with you, McKenzie, but the day before we left for Fiji was the last day that I ever smoked weed ever in my life. And so I'm not even at a year yet. I mean, but since I was 16 years old, James knows this story. Since I was 16 years old, I got high before I got drunk. I had a many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars weed addiction each month that I would cash flow and figure it out. And then when it became legal, it was even easier because I could just, at least in Iowa, I got a green card, I got a medical card, and I could just go down to the dispensary and get it legally and own it. And it was like super easy. And the reality is, I mean, I know people abuse other things as well. Whether it be benzos, prescription meds, or other illicit, substance like cocaine or whatever. But I think that people in their heads can wrap their head around that addiction. When it comes to food, I think it's really difficult because and here's the problem. I go back to 75% of our country, 40% of our country being obese, another 35% of our country being overweight. When we start talking about food addiction, the problem is probably staring them in the mirror. And it becomes really difficult because a lot of people aren't even aware they have a food addiction or don't want to admit it. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I do get in trouble sometimes of, doing my supermarket sweeps where I go down the cereal aisle and it's just, sugar and processed grains, that we're feeding our kids, and then we wonder why all the, there's color additives and other preservatives and just sugar and cheap, crappy grains have been sprayed with glyphosate. And then we're like, why can't my kids sit still in school? I bet they have ADHD. Now they need Ritalin, or Adderall or whatever the drug of the day is. And when I say those things, and I will post on social media, you guys have seen it before, where I'm like, feeding this SHIT to your kids should be considered child abuse. And people don't like it when I say that because it's opening up a can of worms of something's wrong with our food that we're eating as a family and that I'm feeding my children, whether it's the boxed mac and cheese, whether it's the Franken meat that they're growing in labs now. I could go on and on, but the point that I'm making is I really want people to take home that we can talk about alcoholism and drug addictions, whether the prescriptions or it's the weed or the cocaine or whatever it is, but food addiction affects more people than any other addiction that's out there, anybody. And it has a profound effect. It's a domino effect. Yeah. It makes people ill, right? And then now their medical costs are more. Now we're scared to give up a shitty job. James took a long lunch break and never went back, but people are scared to leave their crappy jobs that are not in alignment with who they are as a being, but they're scared to lose their insurance because their health is so crappy because of the food they're eating that they're addicted to, that the food scientists are hitting their bliss points for. And we become locked. I mean, it's a ball and chain. It's all connected. And it's very frustrating to me. I told you I wouldn't go on a diatribe about it, but I guess I just did. So anyway, I'll pass it back. There's not a question in there, but I'm open for commentary.
Go ahead.
I have a question. And I appreciate Jason, you, Dr. Jason, I appreciate you laying the foundation for it. But I kind of prepped McKensie for this part of the show early on about talking about the inverted food pyramid.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's the right time to have this part of the podcast conversation. RFK Jr., I think he's the HHS Health Secretary. I believe that's his title.
Yep.
Health and Human Services Secretary. And I think having somebody that I would approve.
Who you've interviewed before on your other show, by the way. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
I've actually had a chance to meet him and spend time with him and talk to him intimately before he became a politician. When he was a defense attorney for cleaning up rivers and waterways. And what happened, I'll just tell you a quick story, is he told me, he's like, look, I was doing this work because it was my job as an attorney, as a environmental attorney. And I realized that the levels of mercury were too high in the water. And I was wondering where it was coming from. So I had to make an effort to figure out how to clean up the water. And he's like, but when I started making these reports that the mercury was too high in the water, moms would come to me and ask me, did these vaccines cause autism? Because they started to correlate the high levels of mercury into the high levels of mercury in vaccines. And he said, this became a huge problem for me because now I'm getting moms reaching out to me with autistic children. And I'm having to start to understand the correlation between injuring kids with a medical system that I'm not 100% sure is safe. And these are true words he shared with me. And he said, if it wasn't for these concerned mothers coming to me and with my EPA control as an attorney, I wouldn't know that the mercury was maybe the thing that was causing autism. And then I said, well, I want to interview you about your children's health defense systems and how you're helping, expose some of these things and helping making a healthier child.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to talk to you about that topic. He goes, because number one, we're underfunded and people don't know why we're doing it. And I go, well, let's build some messages for you. But this isn't like 2018, 2019, before the whole world went to shit and everybody like flipped everything upside down. The reason I'm prefacing it that with you, because I know that we've made some strides with him being in that position. And really this show, when I started talking to Dr. Jason, I told him like the matter of factness of the timing of us producing Get Better Faster. I said, we have 4 years to win. Like if we're going to shine and we're going to put a team together and we're going to go out there and create content that has a chance to make a difference in the world, I know for sure we have 4 years to go out there and to do our damn best. And really, that's why we're doing this show the way that we're doing. And we launched it strategically the way that we did, because I knew there was a time in history when we had somebody in office that had the potential to do the right things for us as a culture, for our food and for our children and for our families and for quality of life for once in the fucking lifetime. Like I put so much hope into what we had right now. But I know that he's done some work with the food pyramid, and we basically inverted it. So everything that Dr. Jason was just talking about, how it was like all streamlined and made like grains and sugars and all these things, like we're supposed to be the most things that we ate. Now we have an aversion to that, and it shows us that we're supposed to eat the opposite way. And I know you said you've been doing some work with your own food pyramid ideas. So share with us what you're finding and how we stuck in a system that sucked for so long.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is so good. I will preface this by saying every body is different, and we have a multi-dimensional problem that's going to require a multi-dimensional solution. So we've touched on the emotional side, mental side, the intrinsic needs, if you will, our identity. That's a piece of it. That's a piece of the puzzle. And then you have the bigger, dogs at play, if you will, of what's allowed into our food, what's being sold on the shelves, what's being in the stores down the street. And so there's this whole spectrum, to not even just beyond food, but actually in our water supply, in our air, in the clothes that we wear. I mean, there's just so many aspects to it. And so I want to say this, especially the more, and you guys know this too, like the more you work with individual people, you realize a lot of the times it's like, okay, the principles are there. We want to get to all these principles of what is right, what is wrong, what is effective, what is not, what is healthy, truly healthy, and what is not. And yet how we apply that for the person is going to depend. It's going to depend on where they at. If we factor in all these pieces of the puzzle to, like, for example, that client that was a food scientist, I just asked her a lot of clarifying questions to help understand, okay, where are you at and how deep in this identity are you? What got you to believe these things? And just understanding her world. And then from there, it's saying, okay, I know the ultimate goal. I know where we want to go. I want to equip you and educate you and empower you with these things. But what's the next step that you can see and believe in and take action on and follow through with? So I really appreciate that. While on an individual level, we can move the dial, move things forward. On a macro level, we're also changing the narrative. And I appreciate the fact that people that maybe never questioned the old food pyramid are now like, wait, what? Now all of a sudden, quote unquote, all of a sudden it's different. And it's like, well, what was happening underneath the surface? And yes, what were the powers at play that promoted that? What was the ulterior motive for certain foods to be, at the what you should consume the most of? So anyways, I just want to say that because to me, it's all integrated, and it's really understanding each individual's person's journey of where they at so they can apply things. One other thing I'll say quickly on food is I think of it. So the pyramid that I reference in what I do is like, first, I think people need to understand calories being energy. And that's going to impact like what you weigh. Macronutrients are going to start to impact how you look. So like, for example, we can take an extreme example of a bodybuilder who's going to have a lot more protein because they're building some muscle. Quick, simple example. But then we got to look at micronutrients and ingredients. We look at nutrient timing. We then look at supplementation to say fill any gaps, which unfortunately there's so many gaps just in the food and like the quality of our soil and the sourcing of this food. So depending on where someone's at in that spectrum of like, have they never even, like, are they completely unaware of the basics? So maybe we start there with the intent of saying, hey, we want to be aware of, you know, you can buy this sourced meat versus that sourced meat. That's ideal. And one other quick, just while it's on the tip of my brain, I apologize. What I have clients do is if they're open to tracking their food, not even from like a weight loss perspective, because there's a lot of ways to go about it. You don't just have to track. I believe in the principle of tracking, but the practice of tracking can be different depending on the person. But is if they're willing to do that, I would say track it for at least a week, 100% of what you eat. And then let's go back through and count up all the things that were processed versus all the things that are whole foods. And I'm talking whole food, like it's an apple that fell from the tree. Yogurt is processed. A beef stick is processed. It's less processed than the cereal. It's closer. So there is a, you know, highly to maybe minimally processed. But let's get an awareness ratio of how much you're consuming that's processed. And like align with the food pyramid. If we just, let's say most people are at 80-20 in the wrong direction. 20% is actual whole food and 80% is processed. If we can flip that, and then pair it with something like the new, you know, food pyramid, to me, it's taking the principles out there and then it's applying it in practice to the person. So I just want to add that.
So true. And I want to just tell everyone that might not know, we sort of referenced it here, but I want to be really clear about the USDA and the food pyramid. The United States Department of Agriculture, I think people think is like some kind of like medical agency, and they've come up with this like best health program for us, right? The reality is, guys, and I'm going to say this very clearly, the USDA is not a medical department, and they're not their entire job, but I'll read you off their website what they do. Their job is to market American agriculture. And what do we grow in America? It's grains, right? So there's no surprise that in their food pyramid, the bottom of it was like 80% of your meals should be grains. You have to be eating grains all day long. And it's interesting because they basically, the key aspects of the USDA's mission is number one, agricultural marketing service, the AMS. It's their biggest leg of what they do, promoting competitive marketplace and boosting the sale of agricultural products. That's what they do, the AMS, Agricultural Marketing Services. They have an economic focus that fosters economic growth for farmers. What do farmers grow? Grains. What are we going to promote? Grains. Marketing and trade, helping Americans sell agricultural products globally. What do we sell globally? Grains. So, you know, since the onset of the food pyramid, anybody that was in health, and let me say that means they didn't go to medical school. That was a joke because they're not trained in nutrition. But, you know, anybody that had any inkling of the way nutrition works, the way the human body works, when they saw that pyramid, it was a big, like, F you to the American public. It was a misdirection, and it was a purposeful misdirection without any credence to our actual health needs and only to sell grains. And that's it. That's as deep as the USDA goes. And it's been that way for a really long time. For a small minute, we had the food plate. If we remember the plate, that was like, the plate should be grains, and a quarter of it should be vegetables, and a quarter of it should be, you know, proteins of some sort. It was still grain heavy. But then, Kennedy comes in with his team and he's like, this is absurd. This is not even based in any reality of health. This has nothing to do with changing, you know, this obese American population that's diabetic and unnecessarily dying of cardiac diseases. with 1 million plus people dying every year and cancers related to glyphosate. By the way, I'm not just saying that. The largest lawsuit settlements ever for any company are because of glyphosate causing lymphomas. Over $1 billion awarded to people. Unfortunately, they're dead. They don't get to enjoy that money. I hope their family gets to use it, but I'm sure it doesn't bring the people back. The point that I'm making is the USDA does not give one rat's ass about anybody listening to this podcast, anybody in America and globally, because, by the way, not only are we ranking really high in America on Apple, by the way, we're in Norway, we're in the UK, we're in Australia, we're in places that this podcast is ranking very high in those places. And the reality is the grains that we're selling you or the grains you're consuming that your own country is growing are making you sick. It doesn't mean no grains, but my God, it's not to the level of that we've all been sold. And I use that word very carefully, sold. So again, when you say it's systemic, that it starts with the person, I mean, it's an education, but there's it's a ripple effect. Hopefully we change one life and then they get it and then they tell other people and then they tell other people and they tell other people. But there are massive systemic powers that be that don't want this to change. So when Kennedy comes out with a different food pyramid, and I can't wait to hear yours, McKenzie, but when Kennedy comes out with a different food pyramid, there's a whole bunch of media out there like, he's not a doctor, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and blah, 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 blah. Guys, that's all, I'm trying to use my words carefully. I'm trying not to use government words, but like with counterintelligence and misdirection, purposeful misdirection and propaganda. But I mean, this stuff is put out there to mislead people, to keep people sick and downtrodden and dependent on their shitty jobs and their shitty insurance and their shitty drugs and their shitty food that keeps the American economy going. I'm done. McKenzie, I'd love to hear your food pyramid.
Yeah, no, well, and I talked about it a little bit, but so for me, it's still being workshopped to a degree, because my thought is taking the food pyramid that it's being broadcasted, but then, okay, now how does the common everyday person apply it?
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's what I should eat, but how much should I be eating? What's the sourcing of that? How does my body respond to it? The timing of when I'm eating something. Like, we can talk about blood sugar. That's a huge thing with so many people. Talk about the spikes and dips. It's like, well, I'll give you an example of a recent group coaching call. I talked about, hey, if you're craving sugar, and it could be because your body have candida overgrowth or your blood sugar spiking up and down. Like, we have to look at not just what you're eating in a day, but what you're eating throughout the weeks, like what you're eating at night, like all these factors. And so I said a hack, if you will. I don't really love that word always, but an approach you can play around with. I would encourage you to wear a CGM if you can, a continuous glucose monitor, to know your body. But even if you didn't, start carrying some fiber, have some leafy greens, have some vegetables, have some protein, and then maybe have a cupcake. If you're going to have it here and there, which we all can and do, I will still do that. But that your body's going to respond totally different when you have that, and then go on a walk after so you can metabolize it. So, 10, 20-minute walk and see how you feel and what your cravings are, how you sleep, the time of day that you're eating it. So I'm taking this food pyramid and saying, instead of, hey, this is just how you should eat, it's saying, okay, now how can we be equipped to have the discernment and own body intelligence? And so right now, how it's laid out, I have to kind of describe it. It's not as but to that point, my heart is to say, how can it all matters? It all matters. But depending on the person, again, depends on where they land. Like they might like you guys, you'd be at the top of that. Like you get it all, but someone may not start there. So like, for example, when I start talking about food sourcing with some people and I talk about the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15, just as a starting point, it can be too much, right? It's overwhelming. They're still reaching for the things. So I don't want to shame them with what they're eating or anything like that, because that's factoring in the emotional side, but rather saying, when you can retrain your taste buds, because those cells turn over, give yourself a couple of weeks, like you will crave the strawberry and you will taste the difference when you're eating organic, like truly actually organic on a regenerative farm versus not. Wow. You know what I mean? So there's so many layers to it, but yeah, go ahead.
James, I'll pass it over to you. I just want to say two things real fast. at least one thing. We'll see if the other one comes up. But many years ago, I had a client whose husband was named Josh, and he was a farmer. I was in Iowa. He was a farmer in Iowa, and he was one of those organic farmers and raising some pasture raised beef and pigs and doing all the stuff that you'd want somebody to be doing. And he casually said to me one day, to kind of spin off what you just said, he casually said something that sat with me now for almost 23, 24 years. He said, in the future, people will choose their farmer the way they choose their doctor. And I was like, that's mind blowing to me. It was profound at the time, but as 2 decades have gone by, I'm like, holy crap, Josh was so far ahead of his time. And it's so important to know where our food is sourced. I mean, coming back to sources. And I do want to just give you like absolutely kind of underscore what you said, that even making like that keep track of your food for a week and find out how much is processed and how much isn't. And making some informed decisions on that. And basically, if nothing else, eat real food. You know, I think Michael Pollan in Omnivore's Dilemma said it really well, where he said his secret to a healthy diet is eat real food, mostly vegetables, and not too much. And I was like, wow, that's pretty simple, you know, and it's anyway, it's really simple. You know, the last thing I wanted to say, to being in, you know, kind of at the helm of helping women with metabolic issues, hormonal issues, thyroid, weight gain, all the stuff that goes with that, you know, and all the body dysmorphia and psychology that goes with that as well. I can tell you, after doing, you know, thousands of genetic tests, thousands of food sensitivity tests, metabolic tests, food is very personal and individual. And one of the hardest things that I have as a practitioner on the front lines of this is saying something like, hey, Jenny, here's the perfect diet for you. And it really is. We can construct it with data. You know, like you said, CGMs and everything else, you know, lab data, genetics, everything. We can say, Jenny, this is the perfect diet for you. And Jenny may be all in, like, I'm going to do that diet for Jenny. But then other things become real. Like, should my husband be eating that way? He doesn't want to eat that way. Is it right for him? What about my kids? And the problem is, ultimately, if we really dig down to the nitty gritty of each individual person, it is an individual experience. I mean, it not only of taste preference and food preferences, but literally how the body responds metabolically, hormonally, immunologically, you know, genetically. I mean, what levers we're turning on with epigenetics. I mean, it's so individualized that it can become a challenge. So I love the simplicity of what you're saying. Let's just look at eating more real food and just start there, because I promise everybody listening to this, if you just make the choice, I'm just going to eat food that's not processed, and you do that for a week, and I'm going to drink plenty of water and get some real salt into me, you're going to feel better. Like honestly, like and go back and rewind what I just said. If you just do what I just said and what McKensie is saying, you will feel better in a week or two. You may, you know, have some headaches as you're coming off caffeine and coming off sugars and processed foods and stuff because you're processing toxins. But overall, energy is going to go up. You're going to be surprised at the amount of water weight and fat weight that you use out into week 2, how much stronger you're going to feel, how much more clear headed you're going to be. And it's that simple. And it's not a drug, and it's not another visit to a doctor, and it's not even expensive. You got to eat. Just choose different foods. James, go ahead.
You guys laid the groundwork for my cycle that I opened up today's call with. Identity is mind, body, and soul. It's energy. It either goes up in energy or down in energy, and it comes back to identity. It's a cycle. I think I'm going to make this. I'm going to make a chart that talks about mind, body, soul with identity and energy going up or down, because it just makes sense. It's a visual that anybody can see, and it just makes sense. Now, Jason, you're talking about Michael Pollan and that strategy of how to eat. I was once told, if many of you don't know this that watch our show, but I've been working in the chiropractic space for almost 2 decades. I'm not a doctor, but I've learned a couple things. And I was once told that the less legs that your protein source has, the healthier it will be for you. But not anymore, because now we're seeing, like I discussed with RFK Jr., now we're seeing mercury levels in fish because they have no legs, and that used to be your healthiest protein source. Now we're seeing microplastics and different things in fish, and we're over prescribing the livestock that we eat. Like, if you looked at the prescription rights that people have for the food that you eat, you may say, damn, that's a bad idea for you guys to do that to the things that we put on our dinner tables. And I have a question for both of you guys before I finish my statements here. Do you guys ever have a problem when you go out to get dinner, picking something off the menu? Just curious.
I never order off the menu. You've been out with me, James. I think McKensie, you have too. I'm always like, I literally will preface to our server. I will say things like, I'm that guy. Can we do this, this, and this? And most of the time it's okay. Hardly ever is it a problem, but I'm never ordering off the menu.
So I travel full time now. And when I was living in one spot, I eat out on average once a month. And I was very particular in where I go and what I get. It's like the same every time. So it's simple. I teach this stuff. Like I think when so like, not that I know everything, but just the more you can't unknow it. And so I can still, and I say when I travel, because I'm in new places all the time, not predictable, this airport, this country, this language. And it's just like, I can still get a little whirlwind from it. So I really do my best to reduce that and come prepared. I get Airbnb so I can make my own food. But to answer your question, it is, I think as of recent, another thing of like, geez, this is why I didn't do this at home. Because it's a good, better, best. It's not going to be the best 95% of the time. So it's like, okay, what's maybe a better option? And is it even good? Or is it, just totally the opposite direction? So anyways.
I wanted to comment.
I thought it was valid.
Hold on one second. I want to pass it back. But one of the cool things that McKensie does for some of her clients, I don't want to say all of her clients, but with the Lead Edge, is that if they're traveling or even around where they are, she'll help them find like restaurants that serve like literally like that's how white glove her services are, which are like, I'll find you restaurants that you can go to and order healthier things off the menu. And it's such a challenge, and that's a cool part of your service. I know that's not, James, where you were going, but I mean, it's part of this conversation. James, back to you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, it's back to overprescribing our food and what we put on our dinner tables. And it goes to this. Have you guys ever heard this said before? It's not what you eat, it's what you eats. Yeah, and it's not only that, is if you looked at a glass of water you got at the restaurant, if you knew what was in it, would you drink it? Like, we have to start like thinking on a different level, because the things that we did before got us to where we're at now. And as you guys are both saying, and I'm agreeing, it's not so hot. We're not in a very good spot. If you took the average person and you asked them about their self-esteem, how would that be? Would it be high or would it be low? And these are just like, split the room down the middle. Everybody has high self-esteem. Don't lie, go to that side of the room. Everybody has low self-esteem. Don't lie, go to that side of the room. And do you think it's because of the fuel sources that you eat? And I know, Jason, you have your hand up, but I'm going to finish this. It's the GMOs that they plant that we eat, and we think it's healthy for us. And what they put on your food as the pesticides, because the bugs are bad, I guess. And what they put on your food in exchange for the bad bugs, it's what your food's made with. And what you said, McKensie, you have to make time for it. And what you make time for and you make as a priority, it will show up in your pictures. And will you be healthy and fit and happy in that picture? Or will you have low self-esteem and wishing that you didn't feed yourself the fuel that you keep on doing and living in that cycle of doom? And I think that that's a great takeaway for people to, understand that the food that they deem okay is made by a department called the Food and Drug Administration. They put foods and drugs in the same camp. I always thought that was a big problem. And I always thought that it was it's like saying America's defense with terrorism. Like, how is that in one group? And how does that make sense? And I think that if you start looking at the semantics of how words start blending in and how it becomes the things that we just say, like, How many times today did Dr. Jason say the FDA? Like, we just say Food and Drug Administration. How did they ever get into the same camp? That's the biggest problem I see. And now they have direct influence to what goes into the food, what drugs they prescribe to fix the problems that I first said, McKenzie, when we were getting on today's episode, that if we just took care of square one and square two, we wouldn't have to deal with square three, square four, and square five. So if we just focus on one and two, none of this other part of the conversation is even necessary.
Dude, I have to jump in here too, because FDA, it's so interesting. I mean, we have like less than 10 minutes left in our episode. So, I mean, we can't even get into this, but if anybody listening wants to be really freaked out, check out mRNA technology and GMO foods. They are literally, everybody's like the mRNA tech and the spike proteins and this and that and the other thing, right? From the vaccines that are all coming out now and being, validated. And they're actually adding that same technology, and they're calling it edible vaccines to deliver vaccines to the mass population in the GMO foods. Don't believe me. Just Google it. Have fun with it. It's crazy. I know it sounds insane. It sounds insane. I'm saying the words and I hear the words and it sounds insane. Just Google it. And fact check me on that. The question that I have for you guys, and McKenzie, this is a global question for you. And James, you're a world traveler. You're going to be speaking in Singapore and in Australia and all sorts of places in the next little bit of time. I mean, Europe. I mean, gosh, Europe going on a whirlwind tour for real.
I'm going around the world.
You're going around the world. I know. And I missed my plane ticket, but anyway, you were talking about, do you order off the menu? Here's my question to both of you. Do you guys go to restaurants and like I do and order water to drink because you're like, water is a safe thing to drink? And then you take a sip of the water and you're like, that's pure chemicals. Like, it's like the worst. Like it's so, I mean, we super filter our water at our house. So I have this wonderful, blessed, life where we have amazingly pure water in our house. So does James with Kangen. And I mean, we could go on and on about it. But the point that I'm making is I'll go to a restaurant and I'll take a sip and I'm like, I'm not drinking that water. And then sometimes Rachel's like, do you want some iced tea? And I'm like, it's made with that water. Like, I mean, there's nothing to drink at the restaurant at that point for me. And I'm screwed. My question to you guys, does this happen to you? Are you guys freaks about it like me?
I mean, if James wants to,
I'll just say, it's very rare that I can actually drink the tap water that anybody gives me, because I guess my fallback to anybody out there, get sparkling water that's bottled.
Yes.
Because at least they care about that enough to charge you for it. And that's my takeaway on the water situation is sparkling water at any restaurant's going to be a higher degree of grade based on the toxicity load, in my opinion. I don't have like a water sample kit that I walk around with to different places, but if you did, you probably wouldn't drink any of it. And you'd probably go back to drinking beer, Jason, because it's probably got more health benefits in it with the shitty water that it's made of.
Right.
That's great. If you could just manage the consumption levels. Actually, I haven't drank in 7 years, but I was with this guy over the weekend and he's like, I love to drink non-alcoholic beer because I think that it's better for me than drinking water at the restaurant.
It might be. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's so funny. I have a picture that I share in like when I'm teaching on this stuff and detoxing. And it has a glass of water and it has like medication and all, the different heavy metals and all this kind of stuff in there of like, do you really know what you're drinking? I started carrying around a little, what's the name for it? But I put it in the water and then it tells me however many, how healthy it is, essentially how clean it is.
What?
So that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah. It's super simple. It's like what you'd have on like a Brita filter, that little gauge thing, but it's a different brand. But one thing I want to say is that that I found if I were to talk to someone sitting down with them, it's like it's so important to educate yourself. Like I talk to people sometimes because a lot of times people hire a coach because like I just want to lose weight or I want to look this way. And I get that. I'm like, I want to give you what you want while also giving you what you need. And so it's this journey. And that's why I'm like, I will not work with anyone less than 6 months now, because I'm like, to get through everything that is my responsibility to equip you with, it's going to take time. And ideally we have longer. But one of the things I encourage people on the front end is like, no matter how long we work together, my goal is that one day you no longer need me because I've equipped you. You've transformed, you've hit your goal. And if you stay, it's because you just love hanging out, or you have a new goal. But in that process, I encourage people, I'm like, if you just embrace, like, you guys are lifelong learners in your health. This is passion that runs deep for you. And chances are someone listening to this episode has that same thing. Before maybe the person in their life, or if they're at the place where they've gotten away from that, I think that is one of the precursor decisions to make, is I'm committed to progressing in my health for life. Because just what we talked about today, there's an endless supply of things that you can address. There's so many things in different seasons. Like I mentioned, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't been traveling as much. Normally I can have like more of a rhythm, but I was bouncing everywhere. I was like, I'm not going to travel that way because it's not worth it in my health.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, unless I hire someone to do what I do for other people, like, that to me is a value that I'm just not going to put myself in, as crazy of a situation, because my health is more important. I need sleep. I need quality food. I need these things. And so it's just a conscious, values-driven decision. So anyways, I just want to add that little tangents, but
McKensie, wait, go ahead, James. I'm sorry, but McKensie blew my mind. Is it a TDS meter? Is that what you have?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't even know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already added it to my Amazon cart while we were chatting right now. So dude, they're like, I don't know, $8 to $13. Like, it's cheap. And I'm totally stoked about this. This is going to be my new obsession. I'm going to find the best TDS meter that's out there, and then we're going to have that company on the show to talk about water quality.
Yes, and thank you for saying the name. I forgot the name, but yes, TDS.
Yeah, TDS stands for Total Dissolved Solids, and obviously we want a low number, because the higher that number, the more shit's in the water. You know, and James was famously said on one of our episodes, would you drink water even if it only had a tiny little bit of shit in it? And like a little poop. Are you okay with just a little poop in your water?
Just a little bit of poop in the water. Would you still drink it?
Where's the line?
Right.
Like, it could be your poop. It could be your poop.
So.
Or would you drink it? There you go.
I don't know.
That's probably a hard no for most people.
Yeah.
And what a way to end the show.
Well, back to you were saying, McKenzie, and what I, came back and countered with is, what you make as a priority will show up in your pictures.
Mm.
And if you want to look healthy and vibrant and a world changer perspective, then you'll make everything that we discussed today as a priority for you to start making a change. So the next picture you take, you look like the world changer that you identify yourself as.
Mm.
And I think that brings things back full circle and lands really strong for closing out today's episode. And Dr. Jason, do you have any closing remarks for McKenzie today?
Well, I just have so much, but I just want to say thank you for coming. You're just, for our listeners, we've known McKenzie for a while, and we've traveled with her, and we love her dearly. And I just personally want to say, as having gone to the first World Changers event in Fiji, I can't wait for the next one, which is going to be announced in September, I believe you said. Also, I'll just say this too. We'll talk more about this. We'll put more about this in the on the website. But there's going to be a screening of the documentary that was made around the Fiji movement, and I think that's going to be very exciting. That's going to be screened in Boise in September, and then that's when McKenzie will be announcing the next World Changers event and all the details with that. And so Rachel and I are already stoked to be part of that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And if anybody wants to join us in Boise, details to be coming soon. So hopefully we'll see everybody in Boise. But McKenzie, I just want to say we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show. I think that we have so much more that we could chat about. And, you know, I know we'll have you back on again, and we'll do a part 2 of McKensie, because I think that there's so much here that we could talk about. And I really want to dig into the global perspective. I know we had a lot about food and a lot of stuff going on that we chatted about, but I really want to talk about the global perspective of health and the global perspective of food, and just what it all means, you know? So I'm excited to have you back on. We'll chat more about that, but thank you again for your time today. Love you dearly. And for our listeners, go to getbetterfasterpodcast.com. All the links to McKensie will be on there, World Changers, the Elite Edge, and then we'll also have the details. We'll have a link on there as soon as we know the release of the documentary and the viewing of the documentary. And hopefully you guys can join us in Boise.
And I will customarily sign off with McKensie also and say thank you. It's been an incredible conversation. Thanks for being so open and bold with us today. And thank you for giving us time to go on our moments of clarity and talking about a lot of heavy topics and big idea topics. And to our Get Better Faster Nation, if the episode fired you up like it did Dr. Jason and I and McKensie, don't keep it to yourself. Please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody who needs to hear this message. Take your phone out of your pocket right now, copy the link, share the link. And I know you can think about somebody that needs to hear this message. So do it now. And you, like Dr. Jason said, you can find McKensie and her World Changers movement and the Elite Edge over at getbetterfasterpodcast.com. And her ideal client, she told us who that is. But if you are a purpose-driven leader who is serious about your health, check out her World Changers movement and the Elite Edge. Remember, nobody has come to save you, but McKensie is proof that movements like hers are solutions that exist. And the revolution starts with you. So go look in the mirror and tell me if you're proud of the next picture you take. We are proud to be in the top 0.4% of podcasts on all Apple podcasts in the health and fitness genre. And that is because of you, our Get Better Faster Nation. So thank you to all of our listeners. We get asked all the time how to work with Dr. J and his incredible functional medicine team at Thyroid Authority. Once again, go over to getbetterfasterpodcast.com and we will get you connected. And you know the best way to show your support, like I said earlier, share this episode with somebody who needs to hear the message, and subscribe so you never miss an episode and get all the behind the scenes insights we've got coming your way. We have more incredible guests that are lined up who are going to bring you real solutions for reclaiming your health, your happiness, and your life. Until next time, keep questioning everything. And like I always say, keep getting better faster. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, McKensie. Thank you, Dr. Jason. Thank you, Rachel. And looking forward to the next episode.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
So much.
Thank you. Love you all.
Bye for now.
Bye.